Elon Musk, balancing risk-taking with strategic planning. How do you seize the future? It's a question that cuts to the core of being an entrepreneur, an innovator, a game changer. It's about the balance, striking that sweet spot between the wild leap into the unknown and the calculated stride of the strategist. I am Elon Musk, and I've spent a lifetime dancing on the tightrope between risk and planning. You might know me from ventures like SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, and the Boring Company. I'm here to share my approach, what I've learned from my ventures, and how you can apply these lessons to your endeavors. Now let's talk about risk. Taking risks is like stepping into the ring. You're up against the odds, but the glory, it's unparalleled. Yet, it's not about recklessness. It's about seeing the connections, the potential, where others see chaos. Like when I invested in SpaceX, people called it a gamble. I called it a necessity. The thing is, when we talk about risk, we're really talking about fear of the unknown. And fear, well, it's just a signal, not a directive. It's our job to decode it, not bow to it. Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound lessons from the legend. Strategic planning, on the other hand, is your map through the unknown. It's setting your course using the stars of data, market research, and trends. But even the most detailed map won't account for every storm. That's where the balance comes in. For every Tesla, a blueprint of electric vehicles leading the charge against climate change, there was a risk. What if the market wasn't ready? What if the technology faltered? But the strategy was clear: to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Let's take a closer look at risk. It's not a jump into darkness. It's a leap towards a star you're aiming to reach. When I first proposed the idea of reusable rockets, it was a moonshot. The industry standard was single use, and here I was, proposing a multi-use rocket. It sounded absurd, but the strategy behind it was solid: make space travel cost-effective. The risks we took with SpaceX were calculated, aimed at a long-term vision many couldn't see. There's a beauty in that kind of risk, the kind that's underpinned by a strategy so potent that it turns the impossible into the inevitable. Now, think about the last time you faced a risky decision. What held you back? Was it the fear of failure, or was it the lack of a plan? SpaceX wasn't built on whims. It was built on a vision, with a strategy involving countless prototypes and simulations. The Falcon 1 wasn't a success on the first try, or the second, or the third. It took 4 launches before we reached orbit. With each failure, the strategy was refined, the risk reassessed. Now, moving to the electric automotive frontier with Tesla. The strategy was to start with a high-end sports car, the Roadster, then use those funds to build a more affordable car, and then use those funds to build an even more affordable car. The strategy was clear, but each step was a risk. We had to build a brand, a technology, a market that didn't exist yet. The secret: don't just accept risk, embrace it, but anchor it with a strategy that guides it towards a goal. It's about conviction. When I invested in Tesla, I wasn't just investing in a car company, I was investing in the future I believe in. It's that same conviction that led me to champion solar energy, not just as a business with Solar City, but as a key to a sustainable energy ecosystem that Tesla would be a part of. Now, let's break this down. What does it mean to balance risk with strategy? It means knowing your end game. With the Boring Company, the end game is to solve traffic, to revolutionize urban transit. The risk? It's a new approach to tunneling, with plenty of skeptics. The strategy is incremental progress, starting with test tunnels, learning, adapting, and expanding. Each of these ventures started with a question. For SpaceX, Can we make humanity multiplanetary? For Tesla, can we accelerate the advent of sustainable transport? For Neuralink, can we achieve symbiosis with artificial intelligence? The questions themselves are risky. They challenge the status quo, but they also define the strategy, carving out a path that leads toward an answer. Remember, with each step toward innovation, there's a chorus of doubters. They'll tell you it's impossible, impractical, unprofitable. But if the Wright brothers had listened to their doubters, we'd have our feet planted firmly on the ground. If Henry Ford had capitulated to the status quo, we'd still be riding horses. So, I'll leave you with this thought. Risk is the companion of innovation, and strategy is its roadmap. Find your balance, and you'll find your way to the stars. Strategizing success. Mastering the art of innovation and risk in a world of possibilities. In the pursuit of innovation, we often stand at the crossroads of what is and what could be. The path we choose is defined by our ability to weigh the known against the unknown, comfort against ambition, the present against the future. In this next segment, let's navigate the intricacies of envisioning the future, not just dreaming it, but building it piece by piece, with a blueprint that respects both our aspirations and the realities of the market. Consider the birth of the electric car market. When Tesla first introduced the Roadster, it wasn't merely about selling a car. It was about proving a point that electric vehicles could be better, faster, and more fun to drive than gasoline cars. But how do you convince a world addicted to fossil fuels that electric is the way forward? You strategize. You start with the high end. Create a product so compelling that it shatters preconceived notions, and then you use that success to scale down. You make the electric car desirable, then accessible, and finally, ubiquitous. But the road is paved with challenges. Take Tesla's production hell, for instance. Scaling up production of the Model 3 was a Herculean task fraught with risk. The strategy was in place, but the execution was grueling. This is where resilience plays a pivotal role. Resilience is the buffer between risk and failure. It's what allows you to keep moving forward when the odds stack up against you. Now let's dive deeper. Understanding risk in business is like understanding gravity in physics. It's a fundamental force that you must respect, but it's also one that you can work with. SpaceX's journey is a testament to this. We had a series of failures that could have ended it all. Rockets that exploded, missions that failed. Each was a risk realized, a gravity that pulled us down. But the strategy was resilient, adaptable. We learned from each failure, we improved our designs, we refined our methods, and ultimately, we succeeded. Let's talk about betting on technology. It's a field where the ground shifts constantly and where the margins for error are often slim. Neuralink is a venture that epitomizes this. The goal is audacious, to enable humans to interface with computers, potentially unlocking cures for neurological diseases and eventually fusing human consciousness with AI. The risk is immense, but so is the potential reward. The strategy here is incremental progress, developing the technology in stages, from medical applications to broader human enhancement. This brings us to an essential point: timing. In the dance of risk and strategy, timing is the rhythm. It's knowing when to push forward and when to hold back. It's understanding the market, your resources, and your competition. With Tesla, the timing was crucial. Introducing an electric sports car just as the world was awakening to climate change was no coincidence. It was a calculated move. Now, I want you to think about your last big decision. How did timing play a role? Did you jump in too early, too late, or just at the right moment? The stories of these companies are not just about the successes, but also about the struggles, the near misses, and the recoveries. They're about assessing the landscape, making bold moves, and then navigating the fallout with a clear head and a steady hand. So, as we move forward, remember this: innovation is not a straight line. It's a zigzag path of trials and triumphs. And the balance between risk and strategy is not static. It's a dynamic equilibrium that you must constantly adjust as circumstances evolve. I'll leave you with a challenge. The next time you face a decision that involves risk, don't just focus on what could go wrong. Consider what could go right if you approach it with a sound strategy. What world could you help build? What legacy could you leave? Charting the unseen, mastering the art of disruption. In the theater of innovation, we're not merely actors following a script. We're playwrights crafting a narrative of disruption. Each act, each scene hinges not just on the risks we're willing to take, but on the meticulous orchestration behind the curtains. This is the art of disruption, a delicate balance where the brushstrokes of risk are guided by the steady hand of strategic planning. As we delve into this realm, let's examine how disruption is not just about the act of upheaval, but about foreseeing the ripples it creates. When I envisioned a network of satellites encircling the Earth, providing internet access with Starlink, it wasn't just about launching satellites into space. It was about reimagining the globe as a more connected, more equitable place. The risk? Saturation of the orbital paths, regulatory hurdles, and the sheer technical challenge. The strategy? A phased rollout, constant iteration, and a long-term vision of Mars colonization where such a network would be indispensable. But what does it mean to truly master the art of disruption? It means looking beyond the immediate, beyond the profit margins and quarterly reports. It's about understanding that true innovation shifts paradigms and reshapes industries. With each Tesla that rolls off the production line, it's not just a car that's sold. It's a statement against the status quo, a push towards a greener future. This is where the nuance of strategy comes into play. For every bold proclamation of building a colony on Mars, there's a meticulous plan detailing rocket designs, life support systems, and sustainable habitats. It's this unseen groundwork that forms the bedrock of successful disruption. It's about laying the foundation for a future that others may deem a fantasy. Now consider the advent of autonomous driving. It's a technology that promises to redefine transportation, logistics, and even urban design. But the risk is monumental. Every mile driven by an autonomous vehicle is a test of trust in technology over human control. The strategy? Rigorous testing, relentless data collection, and a gradual introduction to the public. It's about building confidence as much as it's about building cars. In your own ventures, how can you apply this? Think about your industry, your passion. What's the status quo? And what's the moonshot that could disrupt it? Then, chart the unseen, the strategy that will carry your risk from a leap of faith to a landmark of progress. Let's pivot to the philosophical underpinnings of risk and strategy. Every risk taken is a brush with potential failure, but also a step towards growth. It's a philosophical stance that embraces the possibility of setbacks as a part of the journey. And strategy? It's the wisdom to guide that journey, to learn from each misstep and to forge a path ahead. Reflect on the moments when you faced adversity. Was it not in those moments that you found clarity and strength you didn't know you possessed? This is the crucible of innovation, where the heat of risk meets the mold of strategy, creating something resilient, something new. As we wrap up this segment, I invite you to embrace disruption not just as a force to be unleashed, but as a craft to be honed. It's an art that balances the boldness of your vision with the precision of your plan. In our next segment, we will explore the culmination of our journey, bringing together the elements of risk and strategy to forge a future that is not only imagined, but one that is within our grasp. Envisioning tomorrow, the symphony of foresight and fortitude. In the grand narrative of innovation, we have traversed the landscape of risk, mastered the art of disruption, and now we find ourselves at the zenith of our exploration, the point where foresight meets fortitude, where the vision for tomorrow becomes a tangible reality. This final act is about transcending the conventional, about orchestrating a symphony where every note is a deliberate stroke of ingenuity and every pause is laden with anticipation for the next breakthrough. The magnum opus of innovation is not a solo performance but a collective endeavor that resonates with the aspirations of humanity. Envisioning tomorrow requires a blend of audacity and precision. As we cast our gaze forward, we must not only imagine the endpoint but also the intricate steps to reach it. Building a sustainable future on Earth while setting our sights on Mars demands a roadmap that is as daring as it is detailed. The fortitude to pursue such an endeavor comes from a deep-seated belief in the cause, a relentless drive to overcome obstacles, and a commitment to the long-term journey. In this pursuit, every failure is a lesson, every criticism a chance to refine our approach. The Hyperloop concept was not just a vision of high-speed travel, it was a challenge to the very notion of distance and time. The risks were apparent: technical feasibility, safety concerns, and the monumental task of infrastructure change. Yet, the strategy was to incite a global conversation, to plant the seeds of this idea in the fertile ground of collective innovation. Now, let's turn inward and reflect on the personal journey each of us undertakes in the quest for progress. How often have you stood before the precipice of a decision that could alter the course of your story? This is where the foresight to predict the waves of change merges with the fortitude to stand firm against the tides of doubt. As we look to the horizon, let's consider the role of technology as a catalyst for change. Artificial intelligence, once a fledgling field, now holds the potential to reshape every aspect of our lives. From healthcare to education, from finance to creative arts, AI is the thread that could weave a tapestry of unprecedented progress. The risk? An overstep could lead to ethical dilemmas and societal disruption. The strategy? A thoughtful, inclusive approach that balances innovation with humanity's core values. In your endeavors, whether they be entrepreneurial, scientific, or artistic, let the convergence of foresight and fortitude guide you. Predict the paths that progress may take, but also be prepared to forge new ones. The future is not a distant dream, but a series of deliberate actions taken today. As we conclude, remember that the symphony of innovation is continuous. Its melodies linger in the air long after the last note is played. It inspires, it evolves, and it beckons us to contribute our own verses. We stand at the threshold of an era where the boundaries of possibility are only limited by our collective imagination and resolve. So, as we part ways in this dialogue, I challenge you to not just be an observer of tomorrow, but a creator. Take the baton and lead the next movement in this unending symphony. The future is ours to write, and the pen is in our hands. Let's compose a masterpiece.